Hello and welcome to the Sound Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. I'm your host, Tyler Cartwright, joined as always by my co-host,
John Carey.
And we know that we're here together today and that John is going to put his hands in front of the camera and be talking with his hands because that is what he does.
I'm just so shy.
This is going to come out on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to the listeners. I'm sure you'll pick up a bunch of other stuff over the course of the weekend, along with some little video shorts on YouTube and things like that. So we hope you enjoy. We've got Seahawks. We've got a little bit of Kraken. Big Sounders win this weekend. Huge. And some college football to talk about. John, anything to say before we get started?
No, exciting day. Let's get in.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John, first things first, huge win for the Seahawks. Huge win. 16-6 against the Cardinals, a weird score, to say the least. Initial reactions, got thoughts?
It happens. The way to victory that we predicted, we've been 50% completely wrong and 50% 100% right this season. It's been very shocking. Not a lot of slight missteps on our part. We've either really shanked the punt or we've kicked it out of the stadium. And what happened in this game is the Seattle defense showed up for a second straight week in a very big way, in a very big divisional game. 16 points for this offense against this Arizona Cardinals defense. You know, we were talking about this Cardinals defense is better than people have been giving it credit for, but that's still a failure in my opinion.
You know what's even worse? The offense only scored 9 points.
That's a very good point. Yeah, 6 of those points coming on a pick six. So 3 field goals generated. Oh, I'm sorry. One touchdown. They lost a point on the extra point. So 1 touchdown and a field goal generated by Geno Smith and these boys, and then a pick six. But their defense showed up in a huge way, holding this really dynamic Arizona offense to 6 points. And they were also doing a really good job of bending and not breaking. You know, I like to talk about that with a lot of, really good NFL defenses. And this is a team that does it. I mean, both of their field goals for the Cardinals, the longest was 35. So those were drives where they were, deep into Seattle territory, a 35 and a 22-yard field goal. And then the pick six was a 69-yard interception return. So another drive where the Cardinals had gotten deep into Seattle territory, and that's where the defense did a really good job of, standing stout. They were good all over the field, but that really impressed me. When you get to that spot, if you can limit points, you see things that happened today. 6 points allowed to a really good Cardinals offense. Kyler Murray threw the ball for almost 300 yards, and they only got 6 points. So my first and major thought is great job by the defense. Great coaching job defensively by our new head coach.
Yeah, I think what they did really well was take away the run. James Conner goes 7 carries for 8 yards total. That's just James Conner. Everybody talks about him as one of the premier running backs in the league at this point. He's done it for years. He's kind of like the Mike Evans of running backs. Does that feel right? That's
great. That's actually a better comparison than the one I was going to make. I was thinking he was giving me kind of Frank Gore vibes, where he's never a top 3 at the position guy, but he's just there every year for a decade. And you're like, is it still James Conner? And other than today, it normally is.
Yeah, so we took him out of the picture. Kyler Murray, only 2 rushes for 9 yards. We really confined them. We only gave up 49 yards total. The other side of the football, it's when it comes to the passing game of the Cardinals, really the only guy who tore us up was Trey McBride. They really just had to dump it to their tight end, 12 receptions for 133 yards. So he had a great game, but everybody else, we took Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the game. Again, James Conner, only 5 receptions for 41 yards. These are small numbers for this offense that was pretty explosive for most of the season. So a really great job by the Seahawks defense. I think this was a scheme game. It worked because the defense schemed well, like you were saying. And everybody else kind of just did their job on the offensive side of the ball. JSN, 6 receptions for 77 yards and our lone offensive touchdown. Really another great game by him, and he's really rounding into form here in what we were thinking we would see in this season. DK had a nice start to the game and then kind of petered out towards the middle and end of the game. He just 4 receptions for 60 yards, not a ton there, but really just an all-around solid game plan. And what it was the start of this game was so slow. I think it was 7 or 8 punts in the first 9 possessions or something like that. It was crazy.
Absolutely. Very slow start to the game.
So yeah, I think it was just a slow, methodical game by the Seahawks, and that's kind of like how they want to perform. They want to be the Nevada Wolfpack of the NFL. Like, they just want to play the game super slowly. You won't score, they won't score, and then eventually they're going to get something big, and that's what they were able to do.
Yeah, and that's could not be farther from the Seahawks team we saw early this season.
Yes,
the Seahawks team of the 46-point outing of the Detroit Lions. That was a team that said, okay, let's just see if we can outscore you. So it's nice to see them be able to win multiple ways.
Yes,
even if the way they're doing it right now is very defense centric with some struggling offensive play. So yeah. Defense is the story. Shout out, Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon. I think really our safeties and our DBs have been spectacular over these last 2 weeks. Front lines played okay, but it hasn't blown me away. Let's move to the other side of the ball a little bit. Kind of an interesting game for the offense. Another game. Obviously, we really held their running game in check. This is the second straight Seattle win where our running game has looked very inept. Our leader, Kenneth Walker, 16 carries for 41 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. Charbonnet only got the ball 6 times. So it's a game where we were really relying on the passing game, and Geno was solid. 22 for 31, 250, a touchdown and a pick. The pick was very costly.
Yes, in the end zone.
In the end zone, so that's 3 points off the board minimum. You hate to see that, but other than that, yeah. Do you have any big thoughts on the offensive output on this game?
Not a ton. I think that's something to note, though, is Geno's struggles in the red zone. I think he's gotten 3 or 4 interceptions in the red zone here, and I think what he's really got to do in those situations, he's trying to keep the play alive for a little too long. Yeah. We saw him capitalize in a good way against the 49ers when he held the ball for a little too long, but then was able to run and escape for a touchdown. But really, at the end of the day, you need just a few yards. Like, you don't need to throw the ball into tight coverage every single time. The back of the end zone is such a helpful defender when it comes to stopping teams in the red zone. That's why the bend don't break stuff works. And Geno is very susceptible.
Closes in,
Geno's just very susceptible to being in the kind of just making wrong decisions. Sometimes it feels like, and so that's where we've seen this team falter. I think the most, and it's that's the most frustrating play I feel like in football is the touchdown or interception in the end zone.
Absolutely, it's absolutely devastating, and it is frustrating because that's where Geno likes to throw his picks, is down there in the red zone. I think part of that's coming from a mentality that's developed over the last 2 years where it's like, Geno, we need you to go win us this game.
Yeah.
If you have to try to force it into a tight window, do it. He needs to get on board with the fact that this defense is winning them games right now. He needs to be mistake averse.
Yeah.
Especially in those situations. I know technically it's not a horrible place to throw a pick because the team you're giving it to has to go further, but that's way more devastating to me than getting picked off, at midfield. So he needs to know when we have points on the board, we can play this a little safer.
Yeah.
And just make good decisions. So, yeah, that's very frustrating, but he was solid. I guess I can't complain too much. He had some big plays down the stretch. Not to pat ourselves on the back too much. We already did this last week, but it was another confirmation of the JSN, assertion as the number one receiver on this team. There was no doubt last week, but it's nice to see him follow that up with a nice game where he leads the team in targets, receptions, and yards. He was really good today. So a really good win, a big win. Gosh, we talked about needing 3 of 4, and somehow we actually got it even after that Rams loss.
Yeah. Or, well, still have the potential to get it.
Sorry. Yeah, we still need it with the Jets here. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. But, 2 impressive wins against division foes. I guess we kind of already did this. We do this every week. Is there anything you're just dying to say about their chances in terms of the division and a playoff spot? It looks like it's all pretty much the same as last week, other than the fact that the Niners are looking pretty dire. I
think that's the real case where a lot of these teams feel like they're being represented from past seasons.
Sure.
And the Niners are they're just not the team that they of 2022 or 2023. Like that's not them anymore. They look older. They look slower. Their defense is definitely not as stout. Just they've lost enough pieces where they haven't been able to pay them. This Rams team always feels like they're injured. Their defensive line is still good because of Jared Verse. But really, it just feels like they are unable to keep up with teams sometimes. Like, that's kind of how it feels with the Rams. And the Seahawks, in that game that they lost in overtime, it's like The Seahawks made way too many mistakes, and the Rams were still unable to put them away. And so I think the Rams are just not as good as they have been. McVay's a great coach. Things like that still can work, but I don't think they're as potent as, the 2020 Cooper Cup Triple Crown season or anything like that.
Sure. They've been a frustrating case where, they just kind of held on. They did a great job of holding on this year while they went through all their injuries.
Yeah.
And then they finally got this offense back and healthy. First game against the Dolphins. They're like, okay, we're back. Cooper Kupp on one side, Puka Nacua on the other, Matt Stafford behind center, Kyron Williams standing next to him. Like, let's go. They've lost 2 of 3, and their one win was a barely scraped out win against the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
So the Rams, I'm still, just because they're not in the same situation with the Niners are just hurt and old and hurt, and also hurt. But the Rams are in a very different spot. They should be looking like their best selves right now, and they're really not. So I think I'm about ready to put my pin in the Niners season. I'm not quite there with the Rams. If they lose to the Saints this week, then I'm all the way in.
Yeah.
We'll call them cooked and move on. But I'm still waiting to see, because Stafford scares me and Cooper Kupp scares me a lot. So waiting on that. But yeah, hopefully, maybe this could be easier than we think. Maybe it is a 2-horse race at the top of the division.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. It's like, is this, if the Rams, they're going to be 500 after this week. They should beat the Saints. If we beat the Jets, who do the Cardinals play this week? I don't actually remember off the top of my head.
I think it's division.
They play the Vikings.
Vikings. Good call.
Which could be a loss. The Seahawks could take the lead. They could be 7-5 with 2 6-6 teams below them.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the Seahawks' chances of winning the NFC West? Because, at the end of the day, that's the cleanest path to making the playoffs. They might be the 4 seed in the playoffs, but the Seahawks, I know they were at one point, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, plus 500, the worst odds to win the NFC West.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden shifted. I don't know the odds right now, but I'm sure it's shifted to where they're probably the top team.
Yeah, it's them or the Cardinals, I'm sure. And yeah, I do think in terms of path, their path is probably the easiest. I think the problem is the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Hawks all essentially have the same schedule these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They all play at least 2 of the Bears, Vikings, Packers, which are all going to be hard games. And then they play each other. The Hawks play the Cards, Hawks play the Rams, Rams play the Cards. I think Rams also play the Niners. So there's still just so much to be worked out in the division that I feel good. I feel a lot better than I did last week. If they get the win against the Jets, I'll feel even better. But the thing is, there's just too much still undecided. And, for what it's worth, it has been a couple great weeks in a row by this defense. I want to see it again. And then I'm going to want to see it one more time. And then I might be ready to say, okay, this defense has finally arrived. But they've shown me inconsistency in the past. And with the way the offense is playing, I'm just not feeling good. Their high score in the last 4 weeks is 20 points. So their offense has been pretty disappointing here for a spell. I just need to see more. Yeah,
I think there's a question of, I don't think the Seahawks will ever be able to put away a team. I just don't think they're a team that's built to do that. And I think it's the same with the Rams. The Cardinals offensively feel like they should be able to put a team away. They could score 35 points to another team's 20 or whatever it is. So that's the thing that worries me about the Seahawks is they've got these games against the Vikings and the Packers, the Cardinals again in 2 weeks. It's those are games where no matter what, it will be coming down to the last possession, whether the Seahawks can close it out or if the Packers have the ball, they might be up 10 at that point. But it's the Packers have a very good chance of coming back and performing against this defense, even though we've seen them do well. So the Seahawks team, it scares me when it comes to actually closing the division and putting a gap between them and those other teams, especially in these last 6 weeks.
Yep, loud and clear. So looking ahead, the last 6 games of the season, they are going into their easiest one this week. This is the give-me of the next challenging 6. It is against the New York Jets in New York. Jets are 3-8. What do you think?
What's crazy to me is ESPN has this as a favorite towards the Jets. The odds don't necessarily say that, but the Jets have a 53.5% chance to win this game by ESPN standards. Do I believe that? No. The Seahawks need to be mistake-free, though. Geno is 12 touchdowns to 12 interceptions on the season. Aaron Rodgers, for all the slander that people have given him, he's 17 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He doesn't, he's not getting the chunk yardage that he used to get, but he's still performing. He's mistake-free generally. They need to perform well. Like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, these are good players. They need to do what they did against the Cardinals. You can compare a lot of the Jets team to this Cardinals team. Like James Conner and Breece Hall are very similar style players. Same with Garrett Wilson and kind of the Marvin Harrison Jr. of it all. Like this defense just needs to do what they've been doing. Otherwise, I think this Jets team has a chance.
That is a hot take. I lean all the way in the other direction. This Jets team has lost 7 of their last 8 games. Their one win coming in that kind of crazy Texans game where they hit the, Hail Mary at half and all that stuff. So, yeah, this team is floundering is what they are. And
we do love a flounderer.
7 of their last 8 with an old, tired quarterback that everyone's saying is about to retire. And in a must-win game for the Seahawks, I think this is the easiest win call of the year. I'm very, very confident that they will win.
I agree with you. I'm pointing out the concerns and the need for this defense to continue to do what they've been doing.
Correct, and they do, because Aaron Rodgers is a surgeon. His arm's starting to go, but he still knows where to put the ball. He doesn't make a lot of stupid mistakes. So play well, and we should be in good shape.
Yeah, I think our defensive backs need to have a big game here. Kobe Bryant needs to perform just as he did in this game against the Cardinals. We need to have Julian Love perform. Everybody needs to be good, especially, Ernest Jones needs to lead the team in tackles for the 3rd straight week. Just at that linebacker position, he's so, so important.
He's dynamic. I really like Ernest Jones. We haven't shouted him out enough. He's a talented player.
So I do think that this team, of all the teams that we're going to face the rest of the season, is the most beatable. They're, like you said, they're 3-8. They've lost 7 of their last 8. Like, I think the Seahawks will win this game, but there are still concerns. I still feel like the Jets have the personnel to perform at a high level.
And isn't that the thing about them, too, is that's why they're such a disappointing 3-8 is you look at Aaron Rodgers throwing to Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in the backfield, and you say, oh my God, they're going to put up points. They just haven't. So let's not be the exception to that rule.
Yes,
let's continue that trend. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I like the Seahawks in this game. Not super worried. Feeling good. I would take the -2 if I was betting on it.
I'm feeling pretty confident about this one. As the perpetual Seahawks pessimist and the doubter of every game, my jaws are going to be on the floor if Mike doesn't get the guys fired up for this one.
Yeah. Another thing to note from this Cardinals game, only 5 penalties for 51 yards. That's back-to-back games where it's 5 or less penalties by the Seahawks.
Which, by the way, is not great in the NFL, but it's a lot better than it has been.
Yes. I just wanted to shout them out. They've been doing a better job of limiting your own mistakes. In that way, like we've been saying, mistakes-free football is the best way the Seahawks team can win. That's one of the ways.
Yep, and costly ones, too. They've been doing a really good job limiting costly penalties. So I was watching the Ravens-Chargers game the other night, and they were just talking about, it's like, man, these Chargers, they don't, commit penalties, but when they do, they are so costly. It's always on, 3rd and 3 where they have an offensive holding or something, like those devastating penalties.
Yeah, so turning a 3rd and short into 3rd and
exactly,
super long.
Yeah. 1st and 10, first down gets called back, and now it's 1st and 20, all that stuff. So, they've been doing a really good job of avoiding nonsense.
Yep. All right. Anything else to talk about with the Seahawks? I feel like, we've been talking about it for 20 minutes, and there's always more to be said. We could have more discussion on the NFC as a whole if we really wanted to, but we don't need to do that. We're 6-5.
And I do think a lot's going to come out in the wash here. Not only this week, but the following week. I think we'll know a lot. Obviously, we will. But with 4 weeks left, we'll know a lot more than we do now. I think we'll be able to put the fork in a couple of these NFC North, NFC West teams, hopefully. And hopefully a clear picture. Because it's one of those things where, would I be gobsmacked if the Rams were tied for first in the NFC West in 2 weeks? No, I wouldn't, because I think they have the talent, and I'm still not sure how I feel about the Cardinals. So,
all of these games all of these teams are within 1 game of each other.
Yeah, still, even the team in the Niners that were they're cooked, move them off. They're within 1 game.
Yeah. So we need this separation badly. Game against the Jets should be able to get us that. Hopefully.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Are you ready to move on to some value dogs then?
Please. I feel really good about this week after. What has happened to us, man?
Dude, it's
why did we ever agree to do this? Why don't we start picking favorites?
It's because the dogs have been underperforming this season. That's what it is. They're 45% on the season against the spread.
We're not at 45%.
We're not, but you're 15-21. That's not bad. All things considered, that's not bad.
I don't know.
Last week, John and I both went 1-2, capitalizing on a week where the underdogs went 5-7-1. So tough week for the underdogs in general. Tough week for your boys. And for that, we are sorry, but we're also competing against each other. It's not for you, it's for us.
I was going to say, keep betting against us if you're smart. Like, yeah. I don't feel bad for anybody that's putting large amounts of sums on what we say. Put it the other way. I'm 21-15 at being wrong. That's pretty good.
You love fading yourself, huh?
I don't have that confidence yet. Next year I'm going to feel really good.
The other thing to note is last week the underdogs went 4-9 just straight up. So the underdogs that covered also won the game.
Which we've talked about. Yeah. That there is value there, it seems.
So something to know maybe when we're looking at our picks is like, who are the underdogs we think can win these games outright? That might be who we pick. I'm going to give you first pick this week because I feel like I've had it the last 4.
Yep, and with that in mind, I'm going to go against the advice that you just gave and take the Chicago Bears plus 10 against the Detroit Lions. It's a lot of points. It's too many points. Detroit has been excellent. They've been blowing people out left and right. Last week was a week where they, I should say 2 weeks ago was a week where they struggled a little bit more. And this Bears team is good. That's what it comes down to. I'm terrified of the Lions. I would not normally take a 10-point line, but the Bears defense is a top 5 defense in the NFL. They're a really skilled unit. Their secondary particularly is really nice. Will they struggle with the, dual running back system? Probably, but, everybody has. And offensively, man, the Bears have looked so much better since Shane Waldron got booted out of their camp like he deserved. Yeah, Caleb's looked a lot better. Their offense looks a lot sharper, a little more dynamic. And the main thing is 10 points is 10 points. I could very much see them losing by 7 or 9 and winning this bet. So it just gives me a lot of room for error. And at 15-21, I need a lot of room.
I'm okay with the pick. I think the Lions as a team, like Vegas, has yet to figure out how to set their line because it's basically like Alabama against Alcorn State. It's like, it's like this team could win 52-13. We should have to set it at 21.
Yeah, you can't set the 40-point line.
So I just think eventually they're going to need to bump it up to this Bears team isn't great. Offensively, they've really struggled. But last week, they really were able to perform against a Vikings team that we talked about is really good defensively.
Green Bay. Vikings 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
They've been able to perform the last 2 weeks within their division. I think this is a good line. It just scares me because the Lions feel like
It feels like they start every game with 14 points. Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying.
They just break the game open immediately, and it's like, oh, I guess we're not coming back into play at this. Yeah. And you can kind of just put that on the side. But all things said, not a bad take. I'm going to avoid that one with my first pick of our Week 13 value dogs. I am going to take the Dolphins plus 3.5 against the Packers. The Dolphins looked very potent when they played the Patriots this weekend. And I think I took the Patriots plus 7.5, so I was following that one a little bit. And the Patriots basically scored 15 in garbage time. That game was 31-0, and it was over. This Dolphins team looks like they're kind of rounding back into last year's form a little bit when it comes to their offense. And it's just, the Packers looked great. They scored 38 points against the Niners last week, but we just said the Niners defense is a little lackluster. So.
They were also playing Brandon Allen at quarterback. Yeah. So not a real Niners team by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. I just like this Dolphins team plus 3.5 points. Offensively, they're able to keep up with anybody. So I think this is a game where they could win, and at the very least, you get a field goal and a half.
So I don't like this line, but let me tell you why it's great value is because you have to be a week ahead on these things. People are always adjusting the way they think about these teams, and that affects the way these lines go. And I see what you see with the Dolphins. And I'm not there yet to be like, oh, they're back. But if they do it again this week against the Packers, then I will be. And then I'll be too late. By next week, the lines will have adjusted. So you're doing a good job of getting under the wire in terms of I see it. Everyone's probably not on the exact same page about it. Let me dive on it. So I like that aspect. Problem is, one, Packers looked unbelievable last week. Their running game looks really, really good. Jordan Love hasn't even been playing that well, and they've been winning games. And then two, Tua looked awesome. Jalen Waddle looked awesome. And it makes sense that they could be rounding back into form. Obviously, a lot of injuries, all the Tua stuff with the concussions. This offense hasn't really had a chance to get their feet underneath them this season. So it's not surprising if now is when they're doing that. I don't have the data yet to take this team away from what it has been in weeks past. So I'm staying away, but I appreciate it.
That's fair. Can we talk a little bit about the storyline of the NFC North? Because one of these teams has to lose, right? Like that's just like
no, they're sending 3 teams to the playoffs.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah, 100%. Who's what? You think the Cowboys are getting it?
I think maybe the NFC West will get a second team, but it's like
yeah, I don't think so.
Nuts.
I think it'll be 2 from the West, 2 from the North, 1 from the East. I think Jaden Daniels will still get his. Is it just 3 wild cards?
Yeah,
now?
it's only 3. That's the thing. It's
I don't think the West is getting 1.
Do we think the Commanders are going to fall? Maybe the Commanders might fall off. They've been falling.
They've been playing a lot worse.
But it's like, yeah, it feels like the Packers and the Vikings feel like they're locked in basically at this point.
Yeah, I don't see how they could, but who knows?
You need to root on them losing at some point. Might as well have it be this week.
Yeah, and they'll definitely, both of them play really hard schedules to end the year too, so they'll pick up losses, but are they going to pick up 4 losses out of the last 6 games? Yeah. I don't think so. Yeah. Okay, with my second pick of the week, I'm taking the Jets +2 against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm kidding. No way. I'm not that much of a hater. I'm going off the reservation here a little bit. No, I'm not. I'm a chicken. I can't do it.
You don't want to take Raiders +12?
No, I definitely don't want to take Raiders. I was going to be a little more bold. I'm not. I'm dialing it back in. I'm taking the Cardinals +3.5 against the Vikings.
I like that, actually.
Yeah, Vikings barely held on against the Chicago Bears team, which I like, but which has not been playing the best football in the world. Sam Darnold is really coming back down to earth. He's still looking solid, but he is not the guy that everyone is like, who is this to start the year? He's been much more human. Justin Jefferson had an awful week last week. And their defense is, still really good. It's, top 3 in the NFL probably, but they've been looking a little more defeatable, a little more predictable in recent weeks. And I still believe in this Cardinals team. This was a rough loss. Kyler looked really bad against the Hawks. Their running game was trash, but I think their offensive upside is still really high. And their defense is scrappy and, makes big plays. 3.5 is more points than I think this game deserves, considering what both these teams are coming into it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. The Bears were +3.5 last week, and they covered.
That's right. Lose by field goal.
And I would say, granted they covered in overtime because they were able to come back late, but I would say that Kyler Murray is a better version of Caleb Williams right now. Do you think so?
Absolutely.
They're basically the same.
That's no disrespect to Caleb. Caleb may be better someday, but Kyler's absolutely better than him right now.
Yeah, and this Vikings team, which I said last week, this Vikings team blitzes all the time. And that's the kind of defense that a guy like Kyler, a guy like Caleb wants to play against. Caleb had, I think, 27 fantasy points this last week. He performed.
He did.
And I think this is the type of game where Kyler can make it be kind of his get-right game. He had a rough game against the Seahawks. Not even really statistically, just they didn't score. But this is the kind of game where Kyler will be able to throw for touchdowns, get his feet moving in a different way than he was able to do against the Seahawks.
Sure.
So I like that line a lot. With my second pick, I am going to take it because it feels like the most obvious line, which could be a little bit erratic to me, but I'm taking the Steelers +3 against the Bengals. The Steelers last week lost to the Browns in 6 inches of snow.
It was insane.
It was nuts.
I kept waiting for them to stop the game.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be over.
Yeah, love that for the refs. They're they'll play.
So I think this is the Steelers need this one. They want to keep a firm hold of the AFC North. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I think the Bengals are out of it. They don't really have a chance to come back in any way. So this is a game that Steelers need. And the Bengals, the Steelers' defense is going to be good. They're going to try and be all over Joe Burrow here.
Yeah.
It's a question of can Joe Burrow get the ball out to T. Higgins fast enough, basically. And I think the Steelers have a chance here, especially just to win outright. Yeah,
I would like to say that I want this one will be more competitive because, for what it's worth, I think the Bengals' offense is better than the Steelers' offense.
Yeah,
obviously.
I agree with you.
But the problem is, one, their defense is so bad. If anybody can make Russell Wilson look like a deserving starting quarterback, it's this Bengals defense. And their offense is so one-dimensional. And Chase Brown has been kind of a welcome, explosive addition, but super small usage. This is a team that lives and dies with Joe Burrow and shotgun. And I just think predictable offense dies when it plays the Steelers.
Yeah.
You know, this defense may be the best defense in the NFL right now. Their pass rush is awesome. You know, TJ Watt's a monster, but their secondary is really solid. Their linebacker is really solid. They're just solid at every level. And they play really smart. And yeah, Jamar Chase is kind of a defense breaker, but you know, with 4 quarters of play, and if you're playing one way, I struggle to see the Bengals putting up 25 points.
We saw this happens to the Ravens 2 weeks ago. Like,
yeah,
they put the Ravens in a blender.
They
scored
did
9 points total. It was nuts. So I think you look back a week and it's like, oh, that was in 6 inches of snow. Like that's the reason that game went crazy. Jameis Winston doing crazy things. He could go in the Hall of Fame for his performance there, you know.
And he was great, but he was also like, if you saw his touchdown run on 4th and goal, it's like, no way does he make it there if there isn't 6 inches of snow. Everybody's looking like the road runners spinning their legs to gather up some acceleration. Unbelievable. I think that's a great call. I think that's a really good one. I'm going to let you have it.
Thanks, man. First time you said good call in a while.
Yeah, but it's just a good line. I just can't bet against my boy Joey B. I just can't do it. He has my heart, and he has my brain too, so I belong to him. Okay, well, with my third pick, I'm going to take the other obvious pick, the other one that I think is kind of rat-liney. So really, parlay these two together and get your absolute heart ripped out when one of these blows it. And that is the Eagles +3 against the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore coming off a really nice win against the LA Chargers. Looked really slow to start. They were down 0-7 after an immediate drive. It looked like, oh, maybe this isn't going to go their way, but they rallied in a big way. Derrick Henry was awesome. Lamar was awesome. They were awesome. The Eagles have been lights out. They've won their last 7 in a row, I believe.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and Saquon went from
making an MVP case.
Yes, yeah, and he went from like looking like an also ran in the total yards category. I should say rushing yards category behind Derrick Henry. Henry like had that locked up 4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and Saquon's just had like 3 of his last 4 games. He's put up over like 250 total scrimmage yards on the ground. Like he is an absolute monster. I also realized total scrimmage yards on the ground is a paradox. Total scrimmage yards. But he looks unbelievably good. Yeah, making a real MVP case. They're probably they're definitely a more well-rounded team than this Ravens team. What with, A.J. Brown. I believe Devontae Smith is still hurt.
I don't know if he's coming back this week.
Yeah, but they got Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, their offense, and then their defense. It's not as stout against the run as the Ravens defense is, but it's much more balanced. The Ravens have really struggled against the passing attack all year. So I'm really surprised. This was always going to be, it's a tough game to judge, but I'm really surprised it's not Eagles -1.5. If anybody was going to be -3, I thought it would be the Eagles. So to get Eagles +3 seems like free money to me.
This one was a little tricky for me purely because the Ravens' run defense is one of the top in the league. And, you put Saquon against that, that's going to be a really fun, unstoppable force meets an immovable object situation.
Yeah. I wish they could just have them go against each other. They should have one of those devices where each of them puts a shoulder in and they're pressing against each other and just say whoever gets the other one into the end zone wins the game.
That should be it.
That wouldn't be fair. Derrick Henry probably has 40 pounds on Saquon, but still.
That's fair. I mean, Saquon's got leverage. That's the one thing that he does have.
That's true. He does have leverage.
But at the end of the day, I think it's a question of, can Jalen Hurts perform against this Ravens passing defense?
Yeah.
And A.J. Brown's great. He's had some injuries. Devontae Smith, if he's out, that really limits this passing offense by the Eagles, and that's my main concern. I still like the line. I think it's a good pick, but I was concerned that the Eagles just won't be able to keep up.
Yeah, it's also a line, for what it's worth, that means more, a game, I should say, that means more to the Ravens than it does. The Eagles have, with the way that Dallas and Washington have both really stumbled these last couple of weeks, the Eagles are firmly in control of the East. The Ravens, on the other hand, are in a blood fight for control of the North. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I guess with that, let's jump into my third and our final value dog of the day. I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans plus 5.5 against the Commanders. And the reason that I'm picking this is it feels like another one of the most obvious lines of the week. It's like the Titans just beat the Texans last week, who are what everybody thinks is a great team, and the Commanders are falling. So this could be the game where the Commanders try and get right. But this Titans defense has been really, really good. Like, I think they scored a touchdown last week. And honestly, the Texans scored a defensive touchdown as well. Like, their offense did not perform nearly as well as it feels like they did in that game. Will Levis discreetly has kind of been rounding into form into what we think that he's going to become. He's not going to become a top 5 quarterback in the league, but he'll be decent for the next half decade. So I think this Titans team is finding their footing right now, and I like them against this Commanders team that is slipping backwards the entire last few weeks with their, Kingsbury unable to figure out how this offense can perform. They have made just like no big chunk plays besides that one McLaurin touchdown this last week. So I just think this Titans plus 5.5 line is nice.
Yeah, you better hope it's not close at the end with the ball in Jaden's hands. But you're 100% right. And, I guess it was a little predictable. We do see this happen, not just with rookies, but with NFL teams every year, where, the Commanders came out smoking hot, well beyond anybody's expectations for them prior to the season. And we've really started to see them sink back into those expectations a little bit. It's a good reminder that, when all these people that analyze football all year go into a season and they say the Commanders are going to be pretty mid, and they start out by winning, 6 of their first 7 games, probably some regression to be expected there.
Yeah.
Jaden's still looked really solid, but he hasn't looked as good. Personally, I believe the conversation between him, Caleb, and Bo for Rookie of the Year.
That's a real conversation.
I think it's a real... I think people have really come around on the Bo Nix conversation and think he has a real chance of stealing it, depending on how the Broncos finish up their season. I honestly think Caleb is in that boat. Caleb's highs have been the highest of all 3. Like, he's had some games where he's looked unbelievably good. His lows are just obviously the lowest of the 3. So, anyway, it's been very interesting. Their defense is regressing. They're not nearly as consistent on offense. I hate the Tennessee Titans, but it's hard not to think 5.5 is a reasonable line. Their defense is absolutely a top 3 defense in the NFL. If this defense was on, I'm trying to think of if they were on the Cardinals would be 11-0 right now. I was gonna say 11-1, but they've only played 11 games, I think. So
you're getting there, boss.
Yeah, they'd be unbelievable. So just an underappreciated asset in terms of these games. I don't have the stat in front of me. I bet you the Titans are really good against the line this year because people just look at that Will Levis offense and all the pick sixes he threw. He threw a pick 6 in that game, by the way.
That's what it was. That was the defensive score by the touchdown. Texans.
No. Will Levis threw it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Defensive touchdown by the Texans.
Oh, yes. Yeah, 100%. That was what it was. They look at that and say this team's terrible. Their defense is really, really good. So, reasonable line. I like it.
Yeah, I also think, garbage time touchdown, they could be down 10, score a touchdown in the last minute, and it doesn't matter if they go for 2 or go for 1. That's the hypothetically the great thing about all these lines, and it should be helping us more than it is. That's the whole point of picking value dogs is you're supposed to get the garbage time touchdown to save the plus 3.5 line and stuff like that, and it has not been helping us, but we'll get there.
Maybe this week.
All right, those are our value dogs for the NFL in Week 13. We hope you enjoyed. Hey, this is going to be separate, as we always do. I separate the value dog segment. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe. We do this every week, and we hope you guys enjoy and hopefully win money, whether you're fading us or not. Yeah. We hope you win money.
We're slaving over this. We don't care if you're betting on us or against us. Just respect the time and effort being put into these horrible picks.
All right, let's jump into some college football, and let's talk. I guess we don't even have to talk last week's UW game, so let's talk just the only game that happened this weekend that we care about: the Washington State Cougars' loss to the Oregon State Beavers, 41-38. This was tough. I just watching this game. It was tough to watch Wazoo constantly score, and then their defense is just a sieve, just allowing whatever Oregon State wanted. Oregon State's quarterback had the best game of his career against this Washington State Cougars defense. And
yeah, Ben Gulbranson showing off. Ben Gulbranson is so mediocre at quarterback that when looking at the Oregon State win last week, looking at their stats, I thought he was a running back because he'd had a good game on the ground. Pretty insane that he threw for almost 300 yards in this game. Did have 2 picks, but yeah, this one was brutal and a tough way to end a season that had so much promise only 2 weeks ago. But we can't say the Cougars aren't consistent. Another game where their offense puts up over 35 points and they lose. If you would have told us going into that New Mexico game, Wazoo's going to score over 35 points these next 2 games, we would have said, fantastic. Or one-loss season. Are we ranked 12? Are we making the playoff?
Yep. Instead,
2 straight losses, ending with this loss to Oregon State. Well, I know who we don't have to blame. Mr. John Mateer was excellent again. 250 yards, 2 touchdowns on 17 of 23 passing. That might be his most efficient game throwing the ball this season. 0 picks as well. And then on the ground, 14 carries, 75 yards, 2 more touchdowns. This poor kid. Get this kid some help. But they give up 41 points to a mediocre Oregon State offense. I guess we know what the issue was all year.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some calls for the defensive coordinator's head at Wazoo, and that is fair. You know, the last 2 games that they've lost threw them out of college football playoff contention, and they just really haven't looked that good. The one thing that I've been harping on, I feel like every week for the last couple weeks, is time of possession and just like the time that a defense is on the field for. Oregon State ran 79 plays to Wazoo's 50. Had the ball for 38 and a half minutes of the 60 minutes of this game. Like, it was so lopsided. This defense was probably exhausted by the end of it. And that's not necessarily, you know, I'm not saying that it's not the defense's fault that they lost, but I'm saying this Wazoo offense is so potent that it's like it can be a problem for their defense. And it's just something that I think good offenses, you know, struggle with. It's like, I think about the Chargers game against the Bengals the other day, where it's like the Bengals were able to come back. That's the NFL. They were able to stymie it at the end of the game. But it's like, it's so hard to put teams away, especially when your defense is on the field for 40 minutes in a 60-minute game. And you just get tired. At the end of the game, it happens. And, you know, Oregon State is able to come down the field and score in the last minute of the game, and it's over.
Yeah. And, you know, shout out to the Oregon State defense. You know, Washington State was up 7 points with 11 minutes left in the game, and they put the block down at that point. But, yeah, to allow Oregon State to score with 2:45, get the ball back, that's where Mateer needs to lead that game-winning drive. Yeah. Instead, it's a quick, you know, not 3 and out. They got 1 or 2 first downs beforehand, but then give it right back and then game-winning field goal for Oregon State. So devastating way for the year to end.
Last 2 possessions of Washington State were fumbles, by the way.
Oh, they fumbled it. I thought they punted twice on that last play. Oh, that's brutal. Before the touchdown too.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's tough. Well, that'll do it. That turnover game is brutal. Yeah, but just a really tough way to end the season. You know. A real bummer that Mateer and this offense looked as sharp as they did right to the very end.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like Mateer has put up basically a Heisman-type season for a fairly crappy Wazoo team. But, like, he's going to transfer this year. Like, I'm sorry, Wazoo. Mateer is going to transfer somewhere and be a
Miami.
Star. Yeah.
We know where he's going.
He's going to follow Cam Ward. No, Mateer is going to be gone. He's going to be super, super dynamic. He's proved that he can be. And he just needs a good defense behind him. And Wazoo, if they were able to provide that, could be in the playoff. He could be could be in the conversation. But
Mateer is Big 12 bound for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be
maybe he goes to Boise State.
That'd be funny. No, he doesn't want to stay in the Pac-12. What are you talking about?
He must be out of there.
Yeah, but a tough way to go. It's kind of this team was kind of like a really beautiful, really nice, like Japanese knife. But it's just a knife on like both sides. There's no handle, you know? And then you have to throw it away because you're like, this is dangerous. But you're looking at it in the trash. You're like, man, that is a really nice knife. Why can't it just have a handle on it? But that's what this team reminds me of. Because, yeah, looking at what this offense has done all year, it's like, why do we have to throw this away?
Yeah.
We know why.
Yeah. Next week they go up against, or I guess not next week, this Saturday they go up against Wyoming, who's 2-9 on the season and should be defeated. We never know with this Wazoo team, but they should be. They should win this game.
We should defeat them.
Favored by 18.5 to start at the Open. People have been hitting the Wyoming line because of the last 2 weeks.
Well, and because Wyoming played a good game against Boise State.
Yeah,
they lost 17-13 to Boise State. So I think people are a little scared of their defense. But I know that no defense can keep John Mateer and this offense down. Only their defense.
Exactly. I also think Boise State's just been giving the ball to Ashton Denty. Like, hey, go get your Heisman, man. Like, go do what you need to do. 200
yards? Question mark?
Yeah. So that'll be a fun game to watch. The Wyoming team, we don't really need to talk about it much. They're 2-9. Their quarterback has 4 touchdowns to 7 interceptions.
Let's get into it. Let's go player by player. Let's talk Wyoming football. No, they're not worth it. If they lose this game, it'll be because Wazoo blew it.
Yes, couged it is probably the right word on this season. To be fair, I think we can finally say that the Cougars couged it at this point in the season. They
did coug it, didn't they? 2 straight. Hate to say it, two Western Washington boys who went to Oregon State for grad school. I can't say it was the worst thing I've ever watched in my life, but I was bummed. I was rooting for the Cougs.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about. We can't put it off.
No.
Let's talk about it. Another Washington team. I can't even say the words. Another Washington team is playing a college football game this weekend against a team from a neighboring state. And moving on to some conversation about the Sounders. No, we play the Oregon Ducks at Oregon a year after beating them twice on our way to the national championship game. I'm pretty concerned about how this is going to go.
I'm so scared. As a UW alum and a UW fan, I am so worried that this game is going to be the reflection of the Jake Browning year where we won 70-21. Like Oregon is going to want to cream us.
Yeah,
like it's going to be bad.
It's like imagine bullying a kid and shaking him out for his lunch money every day, and then one summer you get hit by a car and are limping around. Simultaneously, that kid grows 4 inches and gains 85 pounds. It's oh God, I don't want this at all. Yeah, not only are they just significantly better than us this year, but not only beat them the one time we played last year, but to beat them twice in dramatic fashion last year. What do you even want to talk about with this? It's going to go really badly. They're going to score a lot of points.
Let's talk about how UW can win this
game. Meteor strike at the Oregon training facility.
What needs to happen if UW wants to win this game is Dylan Gabriel needs to throw 2 pick sixes. That is what needs to happen if UW has a chance.
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. But our UW's defense allowed 19 points to UCLA. UCLA is not a very potent offense. They've been fine all season, but they're not a potent offense by any means. This Oregon team is going to score 49 points at the very least against this Washington team, unless they make just huge mistakes. If Washington can make them fumble, do something crazy, but if Oregon plays this game without turning the ball over, this will be a beatdown that has not been seen in quite a while in Washington-Oregon football. Yeah,
Oregon has scored under 30 points twice this season. Once in their Week 1 matchup against the Idaho Vandals, which was surprising, only scored 24. And once this last week against Wisconsin. They really struggled offensively, only put up 16 points.
It made them look human, for sure.
Yeah, but I think that doesn't make me think they're more human. They've scored at least 30 every other game this season. Their offense has been incredibly consistent. One bad week against Wisconsin does not have me thinking we have a chance. If anything, it's just all the more reason for them, as the college football playoff, as conference championship play, and the CFP roll in. This is a get right game for Oregon. They're okay, let's get out all our anger and shake the rust to get ready for some bigger games in the future. This is another, what do you set the line at? Do you have the line for this game?
The line is Oregon Ducks minus 19.5. Over-unders at 51.5. Slam the over on that. The over actually has money on it's fading that. It's going down.
Yeah. I like the over. I really like Oregon minus 19. They're not going to stop scoring.
No, they're not. The one thing that I will say, UW had a bye. They've had time to do some prep and think of some trick plays to try and score touchdowns on 2 or 3 possessions.
To pray? You think they've converted to Catholicism?
As fans, we've all been praying a lot. Thanksgiving, that's what everybody's praying for right now.
Yeah. You got to eat so much turkey this Thursday that you sleep all the way through Saturday. Wake up Sunday morning.
I planned my flight home just during this game. I didn't want to watch it at all. No, so I think it's gonna be tough. There's not much else to say. I think we can kind of move on. It's nice that UW is going to have a bowl game to recover from this one after. But other than that, I think we can put this one behind us as soon as it happens. Like, this was our in-between year. We're going to be better next year. Damon Williams Jr., we're excited for him. Will Rogers, I hope you have a good last game as a football player, because you are not going to make it in the NFL, especially with what you did this season. In terms of this coaching staff, I think we'll see them all return. It's not going to be anything crazy this offseason for Washington, but I hope Will Rogers has enough success to where he gets drafted in like the 6th round and does something with NFL. That's all I can say.
Nice. Okay, well, I want to do some fun facts before we walk away from this. We're going to talk all-time Oregon-Washington rivalry statistics, just to make ourselves feel a little better for what's about to happen.
Yeah.
A spoonful of sugar, as they say. Can you guess how many times they've played?
I want to say like 135.
Pretty good, 116.
Oh.
Guess on all-time leader?
I think it's UW. UW was really good there in like the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, 63-48, 5 ties. So they've got, not only can they lose this one, they can lose a couple more. They got some cushion. Largest victory was
59, right?
66 in 1974.
Oh.
UW beat them 66-0.
Wow.
Which is tough. This is interesting. Longest win streak was Oregon. They won 12 in a row from 2004 to 2015.
Yeah, that was a good stretch for my uncle, who bets a bottle of whiskey with my dad every single season.
Yeah, that is nice. And then, but the current win streak was UW's won 3 in a row. So we'll see if we
see if that one can keep going.
Yeah, that was fun to look at. It's like, okay, yeah, we got a little bit of control. We can feel a little good about ourselves.
Yeah, I do think that like Oregon will bounce down next year. Washington will rebound a little bit. Like, it'll come to be more even in the next couple of years.
Of course,
but
UW's a great program.
This is Oregon's year.
Down years happen. We've said that a lot this season. It's worth saying again. This team went to the national championship last year and then lost their head coach. Like, this team has gone through a lot.
Can we talk about Kalen DeBoer at Alabama?
Let's do it. I think he's doing a fine job. I think he just jumped into the snake pit. It's like, bro, not just SEC football, Alabama football. Like, you can't lose multiple games.
They've lost 3 games this year. They lost 24-3 to Oklahoma this weekend.
Yeah, that was a very embarrassing, but losing 3 games in an SEC season, everybody in the SEC is losing 3 games.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, Alabama's been so good for so long. It's like being 8-3 in the SEC is like being 11-0 in the former Pac-12. It's
exactly.
Like
Yeah, it's not great, but I think obviously he isn't performing the way that he would like. I think the fans are just insane. I also think it's just kind of bad timing because Saban got out at the right time. He got out in the pre-parity era. He got out basically at the before NIL really kicked into effect.
Yeah,
this isn't going to be surprising. We're going to see a lot of this. A lot of teams are going to be a lot more equal going forward. The SEC is just beating the crap out of itself. Sorry, Kalen. If you wanted pleasant fans and good people to work with, maybe stay at UW. Yeah. Also,
he had so much going for him at UW, and then he kind of split it in half. He took half of the good and left the other half, and it's like you kind of screwed yourself there.
And not really. He brought the hype, but you think any of these Alabama fans care about him or have any patience for him?
No,
you're seeing it now. Everyone's like, this guy's trash, get rid of him. He could be 0-13 for UW, and we'd be like, hey, you remember that time you took us to the Natty?
Yeah.
He has no leash, no patience there at all. He may really come to regret that. We'll see.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, college football, the parity is nice. We are enjoying the difference in, Oregon being number 1 in the nation for this long. I don't think it's happened ever.
Mariota,
but I don't, did they lose the national championship? I don't remember them competing to the same level.
Yeah, I thought they might not have been as dominant because their strength of schedule might have been much weaker.
Yeah.
They weren't beating Ohio State that year. I think they were undefeated, if not end-to-end, pretty close that year. And then, yes, they did lose the national championship game famously. But other than that, yeah, an outstanding year for Oregon Duck football.
Yeah.
Talk about the winners of NIL. Turns out having Phil Knight on your payroll, once he can make things official, it really helps you secure talent. So,
huge.
So big things for the Northwest. Bad news for the UW-Oregon rivalry. Hopefully Bezos gets involved and we can get some Seattle money involved.
We'll get Bill Gates coming our way.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's move on. We promised ourselves we weren't going to talk for an hour and 20 minutes, and we've already been talking for
God
55.
Damn it.
So,
yeah, let's make this quick. Let's talk Kraken first, then we'll end with the big news.
Yes.
Kraken continue to play well. They'd won 5 of their last 6 when we last spoke, and they're coming off 2 of their last 3, including wins over the Predators and the Ducks, and a loss to the Kings. Nice to see. Both their wins, they scored 3 goals. The one time they lost, they scored 1. No big news there. Would have been nice to get that Kings win, but they continue to creep in the positive direction.
Yeah, it's been 5 days since we last recorded, from last week, and no opinion of mine has changed. I still think this team is middling at the best and, bottom 10 at the worst when it comes to NHL performance.
They're still
sixth
I need to see
division. A lot.
Yeah,
I need to see more.
Yeah, nothing's changed. It's all been pretty much the same. And there's bigger news to talk about. So we're actually going to end it right there. Kraken, 2 of 3. More, please. More data. We're not there.
Let me break out the Mariners roster moves before we jump to
good call
Sounders, because I know we want to finish with that. Mariners roster moves. So since we talked, that was 5 days ago. This was 4 days ago on the 22nd. 4 people have elected free agency from this last year's Mariners roster. Austin Voth, the relief pitcher who really performed well, earned himself some money these next couple of years. I think he's going to get a nice, 2-year, $6 or $8 million deal. Like he'll be somebody who is sought after. So that's exciting for him. But he did elect free agency. Josh Rojas, John's beloved, has elected for free agency. Sam Haggerty, everybody's favorite player from 3 years ago, elected free agency, and then JT Chargois, who we acquired from, I believe, the Rays. I don't remember who we acquired him from at the trade deadline this season, but we acquired him, and he elected free agency as well. The big move there is Josh Rojas. John, do you want to break down your feelings on that?
Yeah, it's tough. It makes sense for him. There's going to be a deal out there for him, whether it's not with Seattle or somebody else. His play at times the last couple of years is deserving of that. I'm hoping with his inconsistency that we can keep him in Seattle. But if he leaves, I would be very sad. He's been a fan favorite. He's been one of my favorites in terms of a guy that came in out of nowhere. He was part of that. What deal was he part of?
The Seawald deal.
Thank you.
Seawald deal.
Part of the Paul Seawald deal. And we thought Caratini was going to be the biggest part of that.
Canzone, not Caratini.
Get my Italians confused. Canzone would be the biggest part of that, and it wasn't. It was Rojas, and he's had some down moments, but he's had some absolutely electric months with this team. So, a bummer to not be sure that he'll be back.
Yeah, one piece of that is like Josh Rojas came over, I think, as a second baseman, and we kind of turned him into a third baseman out of necessity. He reminds me a lot of J.P. Crawford in terms of he's like a feast or famine guy, and it comes in a month-to-month kind of swing. And so we'll see what he's able to get money-wise. I think he'll probably get, a $6 million deal $6 million per year deal, AAV. Yeah, I think Ryan Bliss, who is another guy who came over in that Diamondbacks trade for Seawald, he'll be the starting second baseman unless we can make any acquisitions, which we'll talk Mariners acquisitions and hypotheticals a little bit more as football kind of winds down. But that is something to keep in mind, is like Josh Rojas is somebody who we are looking to replace, and the position that he played, whether it was third or second, like we are hoping to make that better in this offseason. And I think he understood that and knew that he would be kind of the secondary piece of whatever the Mariners did for this next year. And so electing free agency is fair. It will suck to see him go. We all liked him, especially on the pod. There were a lot of floating that Josh Rojas did this year.
I worry we'll flounder without him.
And then Sam Haggerty, he's the Dylan Moore 0.5. It's like Dylan Moore is a better version of Sam Haggerty. We don't need to talk about him too much.
We love you, Sam. Please don't come back.
Yeah,
one of those situations. I wish
he tore his Achilles this last season, and so he just never played, and it was time for him to kind of move on.
Yeah, it's time.
So that is it in terms of Mariners. I just wanted to touch on that because if you don't see Josh Rojas on this roster in the next couple months, that is why. Now, are you ready to dive into it, John?
Yeah, please. Let's do it.
All right. This last weekend, the curse was lifted. The Sounders, our Seattle Sounders, beat LAFC for the first time in an entire year. 2-1 in extra time in the, was it 109th minute?
109.
Jordan Morris scores the tie-breaking goal, and we were able to hold on those last 11 minutes and send the Sounders to the Western Conference Finals, where they will play the LA Galaxy, another LA team. But John, let's break down last weekend's game. Talk to me.
Too long. I hate, we've talked before, I hate extra time in soccer. It's so brutal how, mysterious it is. To go 123 minutes is just a lot.
That's a whole extra half of soccer, basically.
Yeah, yep. It should have gone to 109 minutes and 30 seconds and no longer. Would have been much better for my heart health. But it was electric, and it was exactly what we needed it to be in terms of just excellent defensive play, excellent goalkeeping, and then a little magic down the stretch. This is the only way this was going to happen. We've seen this play. Was this the fourth time we've played LAFC this year?
I think for our schedule, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I said a year, but I think 2 of those games came towards the end of last season. So yeah.
Sure. And this was the one we were able to pull out. And the defense was awesome. Goalkeeping was awesome. Yeah. Stefan Frey was great. And we were able to just pull this one out. Obviously, Jordan Morris brought the magic, but I did want to talk, the statistics of this game were a little bit interesting. 27 shots for LA to our 13, but only 10 shots on target to our 7. I think that really speaks to, they're a lot more competent offensively in terms of getting in okay spots, but the defense was doing a great job of preventing them getting in the right spots. For 7 of our 13 goals to be shot on target and only 10 of theirs 27, 33% better essentially at getting quality shots.
That's Cam Thomas to Giannis Antetokounmpo's.
Yeah, that's real. That's a good comparison. Possession, we controlled 51% to their 49, 30 more passes, a little bit better pass accuracy, and then a couple more fouls on their parts. Ultimately, to me, this is a game about excellent Sounders defense, excellent performance by Stefan Frey, goalkeeping, and just holding on. And then, of course, it's Jordan Morris. He's come up in so many clutch moments all season. I'm glad it was him. This is biggest win for the Sounders in a couple of years, and a real exercise to demon.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And just so you know, it's Stefan Frey. He's got the Germanness in him.
Oh, Frey. I'm just reading it on paper.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, that was definitely his best game in quite a while. We haven't shouted him out in a minute. And this was the epitome of what we've said the Sounders need to do to beat LAFC. This is what we said last week. It was they need to score 2 goals and just do what they've been doing the entire
We said
playoffs.
A 2-1 win.
You said we've been calling it, 50% of the time, and it's exactly what we said.
We smashed this one.
Really awesome win for the Sounders here, and it's got me more and more excited. I was watching this game, I was just in the bar, just following this game as closely as I could while it was going on, and I was enjoying cheering for the Sounders team. And they've been great for so long. It's you just
we're a spoiled fan base. Yeah, the fact that we're pretending that this is our Rutgers moment, but no, we're used to seeing them in this spot. Yeah. We just didn't expect it this year. Yeah. So that's been very exciting. I'm done talking about LAFC. A bunch of punks. They only show up when it doesn't matter. We got them when it counted. So as far as I'm concerned, we're undefeated against them this year. Moving forward, we have a fun matchup with the LA Galaxy. Another very frightening LA team, but one that we've had more success going into this match. Last we saw them was a 3-1 win in the MLS Cup. The MLS Cup, right? That was the mid-season tournament?
That was the Leagues Cup.
Sorry, Leagues Cup. This is the MLS Cup. It's the 4-2 matchup. On the other side of the bracket, we didn't even mention this, LAFC was such a monolith. We weren't even really thinking about the other side of the bracket.
Yeah.
With this being the conference final, it's time to start glancing over there. Pretty encouraging that Neither the 1 seed, the 2 seed, or the 3 seed made it out of the first round. It will be 4 seed Orlando or 7 seed RBNY.
New York Red Bulls.
Oh, thank God. I was like, where? Is that something in Rhode Island? Like, what's the R? The Red Bulls. Okay, that does make sense. So this is the biggest hurdle. LAFC was the biggest hurdle, but if we can get through the Galaxy, we can count on a MLS Cup game that should be easier.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Now that's getting at not only ahead of a potential championship, but ahead of what's directly in front of us. But in terms of strength of schedule, we've done the hardest thing last week.
I 100% agree with you. And it's crazy. I was thinking back to like 5 months ago when we were like, this Sounders team is 0-5. What has happened? When are they going to round into form? This is their form. Like right now, this is like the Sounders in the playoffs, holding things down defensively. Stefan Fry really performing. And this team just doing exactly everything that they need to do at the baseline. It's like they're not a team that had, Miami had Messi on it. They were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They lost in the first round to Atlanta. It's like the teams that perform the best, especially in the MLS Cup, are the teams that have a very good defensive foundation. And that is what the Sounders team has. And so to keep them performing against this LA Galaxy team, if they're able to do that, I don't think there's any reason that this team cannot win the MLS Cup.
Yep. Okay. So that was all very positive. Here's the rub. Yeah, Seattle is playing like probably the best defensive team in the MLS currently. Coming off the high rope is an LA team that is looking dynamic offensively. They have scored 15 goals in 3 matches. That's 5 goals per match. LAFC, counting the match against Seattle, has scored 4 goals in 4 matches. They only scored 3 times in 3 games against Vancouver. So this is an offense that, no matter how potent it was throughout the year, has not been playing up to that same level in the playoffs so far. Not so much with the other side. This is a team that scored 15 goals and only allowed 3.
Average margin of victory of 4 goals in the playoffs right now.
Correct. They're absolutely dominating teams. They dominated Colorado and Minnesota. So they haven't played anybody at our level yet, but I'm a little worried. Their offense looks really, really good. Yeah. Ricky Puig, Gabriel Peck, and Joseph Paintsel? I'm reading these names. Give me a break, guys. I don't watch LA Galaxy soccer. They call them the Killer Peas. Their best trio of offensive weapons. And I am concerned because we've seen how Seattle can do this. They need to win 2-1, perhaps 3-2. But both of those things mean limiting this LA offense to well below their average in the playoffs so far.
And the Sounders offense overperforming where they've been recently, too. Like, the Sounders offense is not a team that is scoring 3 goals a game. Like, they're sitting at 2 or 1.
They're sitting at 1, and then if you get to the 109th minute, maybe they can do something a little extra. But yeah, they only scored 1 goal in 2 games against Houston. Yeah, this offense is teetering. So, yeah. After all that optimism, I'm pulling myself all the way back. This is good. I did not want to end this feeling too good about the Sounders because I need to keep my head on my shoulders. So, a real task here with LA. There's a chance. We just saw it happen. They just need to do it again. But this is going to be a tough one. This is happening in 4 days. It's happening on the 30th, 7 p.m.
Apple TV, be there.
Apple TV, or be square, on the other hand. Or stream it illegally online. I won't tell you where to do it. That's illegal. Just don't look too hard.
I'm going to have to cut that one out of the pod. All right. Anything else to say before I sign us off?
Apple's not
before you get in more trouble.
Apple's not giving us any money. If you don't want me shouting out illegal streams online, Apple, start throwing a little cash this way. We can get something going.
All right. Well, for John Carey, I'm Tyler Cartwright, and this has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of Sound Up Seattle, please feel free to give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. We always appreciate that. You can also check out our YouTube, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Like the video, turn on notifications, do all that good stuff, because we release stuff every week, and if you want to hear specific discussions on Washington college football, the Seahawks, hear us talk about football in general with the Value Dogs, all that kind of stuff, it's on YouTube, and it's not an entire hour and 15-minute long pod like you're getting every single week.
We're the worst. Just the absolute worst.
You can find Sound Up Seattle on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Sound Up Seattle, all lowercase, all one word. You can email us your questions, comments, or concerns at soundupseattle@gmail.com. You can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50, everywhere that's important. And you can find John
playing the 2008 Battlefront 2 video game, because that's when video games peaked, baby. It's all been downhill since then.
It's all 2008 video games. That's all he does.
If you locked me in a room with nothing but 2008 video games, I'd be pretty happy.
You could eat for days. All right. And I guess with all that being said, I'll hit it with the Go Sounders this week. I missed it last week.
Well, we got to. What are we going to say? Go Dogs? Hell no. Go Sounders.